Welcome to Unbreakable Spirit, Stories of Inspiring and Thriving, with Jennifer Seven, co-author of a book that is part of the Sisterhood Folios, a #1 international bestseller. This is a podcast about real women who've overcome tremendous obstacles and come out on the other side to thrive. Whether their hardships were financial, relational, or health, these women dug deep and found the light, out of the dark, to rise from the ashes, to find the ability to forgive, to love, and to live an authentic, joyful life. Now, here is your host, Jennifer Seven.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 17 of Unbreakable Spirit. Super excited, as I always am, when I have amazing guests, and they are all amazing. But today, I have a very special guest, and the guest today is Colleen, the Tiberius Shoemaker, and she finds something fantastic between the hustle of surviving life and achieving it. And she is super real and authentic, which you are going to hear on our podcast today. Colleen has had a twist of learning disabilities, which she now calls her superpowers. And her goal is to show people that they are not alone in their struggles and that they matter. Her business show and podcast, Finding the Fantastic, focuses on communication for individuals, teams, partners, and much more. And she shows that each person is a unique, diverse, beautiful individual, and we need to learn how to communicate with ourselves and with others so that we can change the world. So, Colleen, I'm so excited to have you here today. Welcome, welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm super stoked to be here.
Woohoo!
Love it. You nailed the name, by the way. Did a great job.
Yay! So this is going to be a high energy podcast, I can already tell. Colleen, I would love for you to share your story of your unbreakable spirit for our listeners today. So jump in and wherever you'd like to start.
Yeah, absolutely. Unbreakable spirit. I'll tell you what, sometimes I really do feel broken, but it's all about keeping the move forward, right? It all starts with a girl and learning disabilities. So I have severe learning disabilities. I have 3 specific kinds. One is called synesthesia, where I associate numbers to colors. So everybody else was like, 1 + 1 is 2. And I'm like, ooh, green and green.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then the other 2 actually kind of go hand in hand. It's an auditory and cognitive processing disability. Mm-hmm. So I don't hear enunciations like everybody else does, right? So growing up, people thought my mom and dad adopted me. They're like, oh, where'd you get her? Because I talked weird.
Oh, wow.
I was supposed to be nonverbal and all of that. And my parents are amazing. They put me through all the things to try to help me. And now I talk, which I love to do. But, and then the cognitive is like, if you hear a sentence start from A to B, I just hear a bunch of words going in my mind, right? So it's all about figuring things out through body language and lip reading. Well, that led me to believe that I was probably one of the dumbest people in existence and had no hope for any educational achievements whatsoever. But I just so happened to be really good at sports, really good at sports. Thank God for sports. So that's where I was the cool kid on the block and ended up playing basketball in college. I had my 20-year plan planned out. I had it all set, right? Go overseas and play ball, come back and coach, do the thing, be cool in the Nikes. Well,
get a good sponsor going. Right?
Exactly. Just like any good classic, Hallmark show, I got injured senior year in college. I have 4 screws in my right shoulder. Ooh. And that was all she wrote for sports. And I was left with this girl who had no purpose, because my entire purpose, my whole life, was sports, literally since age 10.
It must have been incredibly devastating to have it happen.
I don't think I even knew how devastating it was. There's a lot of college athletes, a lot of athletes who go through this depressive state after college when they stop playing sports 24/7. And I just had no idea, because I had so many goals planned. Right. And then on top of it, I'm not smart, right? But I'm a go-getter. I'm a hustler. Let's get in the gym. Let's do the thing. And let's go make a huge career and do that thing. For 8 years, your girl was so depressed and miserable. I put on 200 pounds, right? I lived at the bars, living it up, doing the thing. And I'm an extroverted extrovert. And so you couldn't really tell that I was.
Okay, but you're working at this career that
exactly.
You don't like it.
I'm trying to do what life's telling me to do, right? Get a job, make a ton of money, do the thing. I'm trying to do the stereotypical thing.
Right. This is what you're supposed to do.
Exactly. And I ended up, I got to a low point. I mean, I was suffering with everything you can think of, suicidal tendencies, depression, like all of that stuff. And I had a mentor, Pam Barch, came to me and she's like, you should watch Brene Brown's video on vulnerability. At this time, this college athlete was like, vulnerability. I mean, I'd been living my whole life trying not to let anybody know I had learning disabilities. Vulnerability? She was like, go watch it. She's like, here's the deal. I want you to watch it. She goes, after you watch it, I want you to give me 1 month where you are so authentically vulnerable and yourself and like do that thing. She goes, if you hate it and it fails, you can go back to doing what you're doing.
Well, wasn't this a little bit terrifying to do this?
Absolutely, because it goes against everything society says is the way you're supposed to go. Society says, do the Instagram filter, wear the business suit, make the money, do the thing, right? We have to look
beautiful and be perfect.
Exactly. And that's what society says to do. They don't say be vulnerable. They don't say go around sharing your weaknesses, sharing who you are. They don't say go around saying I'm depressed or I struggle with suicide thoughts. Like they don't say any of that. They say hide that. Mm-hmm. So I was terrified, but I'm up for a challenge. I'm always up for a challenge. So I went for it. And along the lines of acting more me, being more me, doing more me, I started recording myself. And my friends caught wind of it and they're like, yo, you should post this stuff online. And I'm like, again, nobody cares about my weaknesses and my struggles. Nobody cares. And they're like, no, for real, you're selfish. They would totally care because they would relate. You're probably the only person with the guts to say it out loud. And I'm like, all right, let's go try to find something fantastic in life.
Well, it's very scary to put that out there.
Absolutely. I still to this day freak out when I have to do like spelling publicly. And I'm so extroverted and I can talk my way through anything, but you put me up with a whiteboard and like ask me to write a sentence and I'm like dying on the inside. However, in this journey of finding my own fantastic, I came to terms with the fact that my learning disabilities are really my superpowers, right? And they make me uniquely me. And if I set aside this concept of a stereotype and what life tells me, like, where's that written? Right? Mm-hmm. Like we all say, well, life says this, you're supposed to do that. And I'm like, where is that written that I have to do that?
It's in the book of life somewhere.
Right. Like, I heard there's a song called The Book of Life, and I'm pretty sure it's dancing and loving and eating food. I'm like, I think that's where it covers it.
I like that book better.
Yeah, right. It's a good book. So yeah, but I started to live this really authentic life. And I think a lot of people use the word authenticity and it's like cliche, like they never act upon it. They just like, oh, I'm authentic. I'm like, are you really? And I discovered that sharing my weaknesses and my broken moments like empowered me in a huge way.
Well, I want to stop you for a second because I want to go back to when you began working with your coach. And what were some of the first exercises or how did she lead you down this path to becoming vulnerable and authentic?
So in all fairness, she didn't coach me. Like she literally just was.
She just gave you a challenge.
She gave me a challenge. It was me going about the biggest thing. There were two really big things that really started an exercise, like an actionable thing. One, I started to dress the way I wanted to dress.
Oh,
and I know nice. I know that sounds like minute and small, but I started to like be like, this is what I'm going to wear because that's me. And it's within good boundaries, if it's a professional setting, whatever. And I started doing that. And I just started feeling more comfortable in my own skin, right? I started feeling more comfortable about me.
Nice.
I started to record myself. So phone, man, I took this phone right here and well, it was an older phone, but moments throughout the day, I needed to know that I was not pointless. I needed to know that there was a purpose for me and that I was a valuable human being. I needed to communicate that to myself. And the only way I was like found to do that was if something happened in the midst of the day, I would pick up my phone, record myself talking to myself. It was like literally podcasting for myself.
Was it like a pep talk for yourself or?
No, it would be like, yeah. So I just walked out to my car and spilled coffee all over the place. And I'm like, why is nothing going the right way? Like, doesn't it always seem like this stuff always happens to me? It was literally taking all of the words I was telling myself in my head and like vocalizing it out. And funny story, not funny, actually, really realistic story. I didn't know why my podcast started to grow, why Finding the Fantastic started to grow. I had no clue because remember, I did this for me. This was selfish, right? Until one day I had a listener tune in And he messaged me. He's like, hey, yo, Colleen, next show, can you talk about this scenario? And I'm like, sure. I don't really know how to solve it for you. I don't really know. I'll never physically be able to be in that position you're in. I'll never physically be able to be in that position you're in, but I can try. And he messaged me back and he was like, do you know why we listen to you? And again, being authentic, I was like, no,
really.
Actually, no,
Really.
I don't. And he goes, Colleen, we're not listening to you for you to solve anything for us. We are listening to you because you're the only one with the guts to say what we're thinking in our head out loud. And we desperately need to hear it.
Yeah.
And I realized I had done the same thing for myself with my phone. And now I was doing it for other people. And words are powerful and seductive. And we are our biggest enemy. And we don't even realize it. We don't even realize all the nasty things we say to ourselves in our head. And I would challenge people listening here, if you want to really like start to turn the tides a little bit on yourself, I want you to either write down thoughts in your head you're saying to yourself, or I want you to record it on your phone. And be honest about it. Be very honest. If something happens, whatever you say in your head, write it out. And you're going to find.
Yeah, that could be anything like, oh, I feel so stupid. I made such a big mistake. It's like the stuff where you're beating yourself up.
Yep.
And then again, if you can put out the good stuff too, right?
Put out the good stuff and see, and you might be fine. You might be doing more positive than negative, but more often than not, you'll find the negative is here and the positives down here. And you're going to go, wow, I'm mean.
I'm a mean girl.
I'm a mean girl. Like, would you want to be friends with the person that you wrote down or you recorded? Would you really? Yeah. Probably not. Mm-hmm. So those were some of the definite like 2 big actionable steps. And it really took off from there. It like snowballed in a huge way. It took me a while to get to the point where I could admit weaknesses like as much as I do now. Like now I'll get in front of an audience of like 500 people and I'll get up there and say, hey, I put together this presentation. We're going to have a blast. Gotta warn you, I have learning disabilities. So if you see 2 letters flip-flopped up on the presentation, that's just me being me. Mm-hmm. You know, and it took me a while to get there. So I'm not saying that that's something that totally can happen overnight. It can't. You have to do a lot of work on yourself. You have to come to terms with yourself. Love yourself, you know, and I don't mean like go to the spa and get a pedicure, love yourself. I mean, that's good. I love a good mani-pedi. But I mean, like, you need to love your weaknesses and identify your strengths more.
So you're going through this process where you're recording yourself. And then I think you said you were listening to yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then you have this aha, like, wow, this is rough. I'm not being very kind to myself. I'm being pretty brutal. But did you feel like these recordings, these messages to yourself were truths, or were you saying, this is not my truth and I'm going to shift to my truth? Because you weren't those things, like dumb and all of that.
That's actually a phenomenal question, because I would say to start, I was 50-50. Because I've named a voice in my head. I call him the poisoner. 50% was, some of it was truth, some of it wasn't truth. And the things that I thought were truths really weren't, blah, 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 like all the way around. But like the poisoner would tell me, Colleen, you can't do math. So you'll never be good in any sort of business position, because every business position requires some Excel spreadsheet. And you just can't do it. Like, you know, it's just kind of like one of those things, you've been tested. It's not possible. Right. And I would say the poisoner is telling me this, like shifting that mindset to the poisoner is telling me this. It might be factual, but it is in no way empowering. So even though that it was a factual weakness, if I really want to move forward and find a way to empower myself, I can't speak it negatively. Right. Yeah. So instead of saying it that way, I needed to turn that to, yeah, you know what? There's always going to be an Excel spreadsheet with numbers, but you know what? I'm clever. I'm like Peter Pan. I can figure this out. I'll get around it somehow. Right. And so it automatically changed that to myself, but I had to work at it, because I'd watch a video and be like, yeah, Colleen, man, you just, you blew that one. Like, I was pretty judgmental and arrogant too during this time. Like I would like to say I create a really nice safe space now, but I also don't want to be too prideful. But I was very judgmental and arrogant back then. And I think it was because I was so judgmental and arrogant to myself as well.
Yeah.
I had to work through a lot of that stuff. And like, when I saw myself, I was like, oh, I would never want to go out for a drink with you. Oh, because wow, it just was an eye-opening thing. And it
Yeah, you
sounds so
weren't feeling
simple.
good about the outside or the inside of yourself.
No. And it
Yeah.
all breathed life outside, you know? So yeah, man, it's a crazy adventure, but it's totally worthwhile. It's totally worthwhile.
Well, I love the name of your business and your podcast, you know, and you know, someone said to me once, and I've used this with people before, when you get in that kind of black and white thinking of it's just all this way or it's all this way, and then it's the question is, well, is it possible? Is it just possible that you can be in a job where you can deal with these math situations? Is it possible? And that opens the door to like, oh, well, maybe it is. And like you said, then you're like, well, I'm clever. I can figure this out. Just opening the door of your mind a little bit.
Yeah. Be open to it. I mean, and that's why I say humans are diverse and beautiful, like people groups, because the amount of ability that that person has to create and change and innovate, we don't even know. Like we can't even tap into that. And so just to knock yourself out of the ball game because of past negative trauma is like, don't do that. Yes, we all have trauma. We definitely all have trauma, but take the trauma and glean from it what you need to glean to grow and then move past it. Now, I'm also a big believer that a victim's a victim. And if you've been victimized, you're allowed to sit in that victimhood because you never asked for it. It's something there. But should you choose to want to move forward, take the trauma, because broken people can help other broken people. You never know what your experience is going to do to help save somebody else. And I always say for finding the fantastic, at the end of the day, if it never takes off, if it's never the Simon Sinek's of the world, right? As long as there's one person who is sitting in a car, whether or not debating to commit suicide, if I can give them 5 more minutes of reassurance that they matter and they are important, then it's 100% worth it to me. Because that's really where my purpose and heart is. Knowing where I came from and the journey I've been through, it seems impossible, but I'm telling you, it's not impossible. It's hard work, but it's totally worth it.
Yeah. And you were willing to do the work. And I know sometimes it's really difficult when you're in a depression. Sometimes it's just hard to even get out of bed. It's hard to even do anything. And it's a chemical thing that's going on. So it's not that you're lazy and you're just laying around in bed all day. It's much more than that. When you were in this depths of this pretty severe depression, how did you move forward? I know you heard from Pam.
Yeah, Pam. That's a great question. I think so. I have a pretty strong faith. And I think at the end of the day, it was me and my faith at the realizing that if I continued on the road I was on, it's going to end poorly. And my personality trait's very different from other people's personality traits. So I don't want people to think that my solution should be their solution, right? But for me, it came down to my faith in this concept of you can either do something to try to turn it around, or you can just continue to go downhill. The choice is yours. Are you going to tie a big knot at the end of your rope and hold on and see what comes out of it, or are you just going to flounder away? And I made the choice to keep moving forward. That's one of my favorite quotes. I have it tattooed on my foot. Keep moving forward. I made that choice. And I realized that choice doesn't come in big, impactful moments. That choice comes with little tiny moments. I call them defining perfect moments, where you choose something for yourself that's just perfect because it was what was meant to be in the moment you were in. So whether you're me and out and record myself. So for defining perfect moments, I call them that, because for me, it was the moment where I was like, all right, I'm going to make a change, and I'm going to explore whether it was listening to Brene Brown and starting to dress the way I wanted to dress, or acting the way I wanted to act. For other people, it might be like, all right, today I'm going to get out of bed. Today I'm going to go wash my hair, or today I'm going to text somebody I haven't talked to in a while. Those moments, this is why it's so important that we have to get to know ourselves. Because I think people look at other people's successes in their process, the way they did their process, and they try to duplicate it. You can't duplicate a personal journey process because it's a personal journey. It's got to be uniquely you. And if I can say that to anybody listening right now who's in a depressive state, who may be having suicidal thoughts, self-harm, whatever it is, I just want you to know to hold on to the end of your rope. That you can do this. It's possible. It's going to look different for you because you're you and you're beautiful and diverse and you matter. But just know, look for those small little bitty moments, those little bitty defining perfect moments. And slowly it's going to build and build and build. And you can do it. And we want you here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I went through a pretty rough patch myself after my separation and divorce. But I was feeling really miserable, but I also was really determined to feel better. And so I was really down in the dumps and really sad, but I was like one step in front of the other, as all I can do is one step in front of the other. And I had a mentor say to me, start focusing on what you're grateful for in your life. And she actually said, and I've told this story before, but get a journal, an empty journal, and I want you to fill the entire book up with statements of gratitude. And I looked at her like she was nuts. Yes. I was like, why? I don't feel grateful. I'm miserable. And I started really simple. It was like, okay, I'm grateful I had breakfast this morning. I'm grateful I had a bed to sleep in. I'm grateful I had a roof over my head. I'm grateful that I woke up. And I just had to start, just like you said, in these tiny little moments. But I also was determined. I'm like, okay, if she says that's going to make me feel better, I'm going to do it. I do my homework. And, and I did it. I mean, I didn't do it overnight, but over time I filled the entire book up. And what was so fascinating was how it grew. Mm-hmm. I was able to find the gratitude and find the blessings in my life in really strange little ways. And there are so many small moments that are beautiful. Yeah. I saw a sunset, I saw a sunrise, I saw the moon. It's just,
we don't appreciate those moments because I think life tells us we're looking for the big moments, the graduations, the weddings, the promotions, and that those are the only things that matter. But the reality, that's not the case. The reality is we all live in this routine everyday thing. And that's what gets us every day, the grind of the same thing. So stop the same thing. Instead of waking up at the time you normally wake up at a different time and do something completely weird. I do this all the time.
Yeah.
If I feel myself, I just need to pick me up. This is going to sound crazy, but I do it. I will go to the store and buy 100 glow sticks. And at night I'll crack them and throw them up in the sky and have a blast with glow sticks. Right. If I want to do something else squirrely, I'll go to the toy section and buy some toys, or I'll bake a cake. I will change life. People all the time are like, oh, it's Miss Fantastic. You're fantastic. And I'm like, no. I said, I appreciate that. The beauty is not in the fantastic part of the name. The beauty is in the finding part of the name, because we are finding. Life gives us no breaks. Right. Life will never give you a break. If you're sitting there going, when am I going to get rest? When am I going to get a break? When am I going to get sleep? When am I going to get this? It's not going to give it to you. And I hate to say that, but it's the truth. You have to find it and make it. And it's possible. It is possible, but you have to start by breaking stereotypes. Is it weird that I go buy a bunch of glow sticks and throw them up in the sky? Sure. To some people, it might be weird. To me, I'm having a blast on a random Tuesday night after a long day at work.
Well, and I tell you, I think my favorite thing, or my superpower, is my weirdness. I love being weird. I'm proud of it. It's like, okay, let's be weird. Yeah, that's me.
Be proud of it. Yeah. Because you're authentically you.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that we've lost as we grow older is we've lost that childlike innocence. We've lost that ability to play. And that's what you're doing. You're playing. You've found toys. You're throwing glow sticks up in the air. That's something we've lost.
Yep.
And it's a great place to start, going back to play.
It is. There's a great movie. Have you seen the movie Legend of the Guardians or something? And it's about all the different holiday characters: Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy. And the premise, it's based on a children's book series, but the premise of it is they're introducing Jack Frost, and the Man in the Moon chooses Jack Frost to be the next guardian.
Okay.
And everybody's like, Jack Frost, all he does is make snow days and create ice storms. Why is Jack Frost as cool as everybody else? And the entire movie is about Jack Frost having to find his center. What is it about Jack Frost? What is his center, right? Santa Claus is wonder. The Easter Bunny is hope. Fairy is memories, fun childhood memories, right? And towards the end of the movie, he's got to fight off the boogeyman, who brings nightmares. And the boogeyman took away Sandman, who's in charge of dreams.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm getting to a point, trust me.
Okay, I love it. I love it.
At the end, Jack Frost is facing the boogeyman, and he realizes that the boogeyman is scaring these kids. And he looks at the kids, he goes, wait, we're not going to be scared right now. we're going to have a little fun instead. And he realizes that his center is fun and that you can fight fear with fun, and the power of fun and youthful activities and just being a kid and creating. There is so much power behind it that you can defeat your biggest nightmares and your biggest state of darkened moments by having a little fun instead. So like I said, there's a point to it. It's a great movie, but think about that. If you're having a bad day, just stop and go have fun. Go get the ice cream cone, right? Go out to eat, go do the thing, tie dye a t-shirt.
Yeah. Switch it up. Switch it up. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's finding the fantastic.
Finding your fantastic. Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. And if it's going out and walking barefoot on the grass or getting near some water, taking a hike, anything, like you said, just change it up, change it up.
Life's too short. Don't be like, well, next week I'm doing this. Who cares? Life's too short. Live one day at a time and have a blast each day.
Yeah. Get some sparklers.
Yeah. Oh, good one. Yes. Some sparklers.
I know. I was, again, considered weird the other night when we had the lunar eclipse and the full moon. And I just love the moon. I don't know. I'm so drawn to it. And I was so disappointed that we couldn't see it that night, but I had signed up for this global meditation and it was at midnight, which I don't do well past 10 o'clock.
Right. Fair enough.
But I stayed up and I did it and it was so powerful. And of course, the next day, everybody's like, you're just so weird. But you know what? It was cool. And I didn't find myself exhausted the next day. You know, it was like, okay, I got some energy from that.
Exactly. You're having fun. You're doing the thing that's authentically you.
Yeah. I was really
You're not your job. I always say that a lot. You're not your job. Like, I think a lot of people think that you're your job. Like, and they're like, oh, this, like, what do you do? Well, you know, I'm an accountant. That's not you. That's what you do to pay your bills. That's not who you are.
Oh, and that brings up a really good point. When I want to talk about mental health and depression, you are not your diagnosis. That is something I think people really need to think about. It's, you have a diagnosis, you might have a condition, but it is not who you are. And you don't have to be defined by that.
100%. It's not your identity at all. Your identity is you. And the reason why a lot of times the diagnosis or the stereotypes become our identities is because we don't take the time to work on ourselves. Like, we'll go to the gym, we'll eat healthy, we'll do all this stuff, we'll take courses for the careers, but like, we never sit down and go, all right, I need to work on how I'm talking to myself, or I need to work on who I am. I need to identify my center, right? And so we have no foundation. So all these gaps get filled up with all these other things. And then slowly we're like, yes, I am this, I am that, I am this, but you know, you're not. So another actionable item, I'm huge on actionable items. If you want to start turning the tides, every day, wake up and try to work on you, whether it's figuring out what your center is, figuring out, I always say, write down your emotions, good and bad. What are some of your emotions? What are some of your bad emotions? Good emotions? What makes you happy? What makes you sad? Start putting all of that out into the universe, right? Words are powerful, written or spoken. Start doing that.
Yes. And you'll find from that things start to shift.
Absolutely. In a huge way.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to as we talked about a little bit earlier, that your thoughts are not necessarily truths. We get so many negative thoughts. I had this conversation with my son the other day. He goes, Mom, I kind of realized my mind is not in charge. You know, I'm in charge of my mind. And I'm like, oh, I love that.
Genius. He's a genius.
Yeah.
If only more people would understand that, because even myself, my mind runs rampant. I give my mind so much consent and I'm like, this is crazy. It's ridiculous how much consent I give my mind, how much consent I give it to just beat me up left and right. We're tired people. Like I said, life gives us no breaks. There's no reason for us to beat ourselves up anymore in what's going on.
Yes, and I think it's important for our listeners to know that life is cyclical as well. And life is also full of change. So if you're in a really dark place, it's temporary. If we can believe, if it's possible that this will change, that this is not forever, then that really opens up hope. And it doesn't stay the same. Things don't stay the same. Hopefully they're going to get better, but life cycles. And even we get on top of the world, we're feeling great. There's going to be something that comes at us that's like, okay, I'm going to get beat up a little bit here, but we learn to be resilient. We start to learn those tools within ourselves so that we can get through it. And maybe that cycle of going down in the dumps isn't as deep.
Yep. And
Yeah.
I can preach to that from my own experience, because I got back depressed again during COVID. I mean, I'm an extrovert. I got to be out. I got to be doing stuff. And in 2021, it wasn't even 2020. 2020, I did a pretty good job of keeping myself entertained, but I was slowly slipping. I didn't realize I wasn't working on myself. I wasn't doing what I needed to do. And then 2021 hits and I'm like, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm not shooting as much videos. I'm not recording as much podcasts, like all the things that helped me and was doing things that would get me out of it, I stopped doing. And I just got super depressed. And I remember, I'll never forget it, on a random, I think it was Wednesday, I decided to do a live video of literally where I was at. And I just got out of the shower because I was trying to turn things around and I was just not energetic. I was not happy. And I said, guys, I'm depressed and I'm going through it and I'm having a hard time. And I'm thinking this, and this. And I shared the whole thing. And it was like an 8-minute video. And it was interesting. I had a lot of people message me and saying, wow, Colleen, your video needs to be more like that's not you. You need to be more like yourself, be more, you know, la, la, la. But then I had people going, thanks so much for sharing this, because I'm really depressed and I'm not myself. And I just was, you know, trying to get through it by myself, but you put it out there. I mean, the Colleen, who's always energetic and peppy, literally just got on a video and was like, yeah, guys, you know, I'm having a hard time, you know? And so that got me back, you know, moving forward in little steps back again. And so it happens.
And how much comfort you didn't realize that you were providing for people, that they are not alone.
Yep.
Somebody somewhere is going through something similar.
Yep, absolutely. Have you ever heard of the definition of the word to sonder or sondering?
No.
Oh my God, it's so beautiful. And I don't do a good job of explaining it. But the concept is we all exist in our own worlds, and around us are people who are existing in their own worlds as well. And they are going through immensely traumatic things and immensely amazing things all around us. And when we sit in a place of people walking around us, we are by definition sondering amongst their world. They don't know we're there, but they know we're there. And our impact while we're sondering can be profound and positive, or it can be negative. And it's all at how you look to go about it. We might know somebody's name, but we don't know their story. I love that. I love that word, to sonder amongst people.
Sonder. Does that mean you're picking up their energy?
So yes and no. It means that you're existing amongst, it's the understanding that you're existing amongst the people who are going through immense traumatic things. They're not just stand-ins or chorus people in a show. Like, they're not the background people. They're the main star of their own show. Right.
Yeah.
And you're existing in their show right now,
Yeah.
and you're sondering in there. The question is how you handle your energy and impact on them while you're sondering.
It's you impacting them. Correct. Even though it's their show. Okay.
Yeah. You might think, oh, I'm just sitting here. It's no big deal. I'm just sitting here. You're not sitting, you're sondering, because you don't realize, what if that person sitting next to you is going through some sort of domestic violence situation? You are sondering in their domestic violence show right now. They are the main player of that show, of that horrific horror movie. You are sondering in that moment. How you interact with that person, you completely control. That person, let's say they cut you off in traffic. Yeah. How you interact, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like things
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So that's a wonderful point, because that brings me to compassion and kindness.
Yep.
Yes. Because
be kind in a world where you can be anything, be kind.
Yeah. And taking away some of our judgment, it's so easy to fall into that, like, oh, that jerk, you know, they cut me off in traffic and I hate them and I'm gonna blow my horn, I'm gonna get as close up on their rear end as I can. Well, we don't know what just happened in their lives, why they maybe accidentally did it, or they were distracted because something happened at home and it was not intentional. I mean, there's plenty of intentional crap out there, but
Yep.
So just to kind of take a breath and be like, okay, maybe I don't have to respond this way. Maybe I can respond in a kinder, more compassionate way. I'm
going to call myself out, which I've gotten in the habit of doing. It's a beautiful thing.
Okay.
But I, over this holiday season, it was like, I think it was either December or January. So 2021 or 2022, I had ordered food from Uber. And let's just say that I treated this Uber driver so bad. I yelled at him, told him to get off my property. Granted, there was a reason why I behaved the way I behaved, but that is literally no excuse for my behavior. So I'm not I actually brought this up on my podcast and I was like, please nobody comment that he had it come in or there was a reason, or don't ask me to explain why I did it, because that doesn't matter. Why he did what he did does not matter. I am responsible for my actions, and I behaved so poorly. I was a jerk. I was awful. I was so embarrassed of myself after I did it, because then I thought to myself, Colleen, you sauntered in his space. And how do you know what he's going through? Granted, he might just be mean, but that's no excuse. You don't know. And I'm like, man. And I spoke it into existence, and I started speaking about it more and more and more. And it helped me to overcome more circumstances that I was coming into. But I think if we all admit we all do it, we can get over it more, because let's face it, we've all done it at some point.
Yeah. Somebody, you talk to a customer service person and they're in another country and you're just like, haven't we all done that?
Yeah, exactly. And I think so many people strive to like be kind and positive all the time. And then they're like, it's impossible. And I'm like, yeah, I know it's impossible. It's not possible to be kind 100% of the time. So don't strive for that. Goals are guidelines. A guideline to like aim to. It's like a target, right? But it doesn't mean if you have to get there. That's another stereotype like puts on us. You have to get there if you set this goal. Listen, if your goal is to be kind and you do it once a day, you're doing great in my book.
Yeah, it's a great start. It's a great start because it will grow.
It will. It'll become second nature.
Yeah, because we're not perfect. I mean, we are never perfect. Yeah. And I've gotten so it's ironic, or it's funny, not funny on Facebook these days, where the most innocent comment will be put out there, and then there's the people that just shred it. Yep. And I'm like, why? Is it just fun? Do you think it's fun? It's just so mean.
It is. Yeah, it is. For some people, it is a lot of fun. And I actually started this year. This was big of me. I'm learning about boundaries. I know about boundaries, but I'm working on boundaries for myself, because I like to make everybody happy. I like to be a people pleaser. I want everybody to like me. Woo! And that's not healthy, right? Boundaries are very healthy and very good. And oftentimes when you set up boundaries, it makes you kind of look like a jerk, even though you're not. Like you're well within your right to set up a boundary. One of my boundaries this year was online. If I see somebody make one of those nasty troll-like comments, no matter who they are, from my family to my best friends to my work people to customers, no matter who they are, if I see you make a nasty comment like that, I'm blocking you.
All right.
And that's my own boundary, because I realized to be around people like that is putting me in a position of harm's way, because if they have that in them, granted, they might work on it, and I'm cool with that. But for my own boundary, I'm like, I just want to live in a place of peace, because the more we're inundated with that stuff, the more it affects us. And I know for my own mental health, it's important to not do that. That's not to say I'm not going to interact with the person if I see him in the streets, right? But I think we all let like social norms dictate a lot for us, and we don't send up boundaries to protect ourselves. It goes back to working on ourselves. We don't set that up in such a way to help us.
Yeah. And we don't have to expose ourselves to these things. We don't have to. I mean, there's enough to worry about in the world. And that brings up a really good point, because, turn on the news. Oh, yeah. The world is a really pressurized place right now, and it's very toxic. It's very negative, especially if you're listening to the news 24/7. So being able to disconnect, to find your peace, it's okay. Or just a little bit of news every day. It doesn't have to be.
Girl, I don't even have cable. I don't watch the news. I get all my news. It comes to you like, you would be shocked if you're like, well, if you don't watch the news, how do you know what's going on? Oh, they make sure you find out. They will make sure you find out all the stuff you need to find out about.
Yeah.
But I know, again, boundary for myself and my household. We got rid of cable. We don't watch the news. We're like, nope, don't need that.
Yeah, don't need it. You don't need it. It's too much. And if you are struggling with dark thoughts and negativity and depression, you certainly don't need to feed it. Because
that's no shame to anybody who wants to do it. That's great. But like I said, boundaries, going back to diverse individual humans, we all have our own journey. My process works for me, and I'm always working on it. Your process is going to look different, right? So I don't want anybody listening to be like, well, I like the news. Well, if you like the news and it's good and for your mental health and your environment, rock and roll, man.
Yeah. Well, absolutely.
Yeah. But those should all be things you work on for yourself to figure out what works for yourself. It's kind of like if you have a pair of pants that you absolutely hate, what are you more likely going to do with those pants? Throw them out, not wear them and throw them out, right?
Right.
But if you have a pair of pants that you absolutely love and make you feel really good and sexy, You're always going to wear them.
Mhm.
That simple concept should be applied to everything in your life. If you hang around people who make you feel like garbage,
Yeah.
I don't want to say throw out, but
Yeah.
boundaries. If you hang around,
Disconnect.
disconnect. If you hang around people who build you up, interact more.
Yeah. What do they say? You find your tribe, and your tribe should be supporting you and lifting you up and not tearing you down. And sometimes you have to make changes and choices. And but like you said, you could start in little ways.
In little ways. Boundaries are tough. I have a hard time. I'm a very codependent person. Boundaries are hard.
Yeah, they are hard, especially depending on who you're trying to set them with, like family.
Oh, yes.
It can be one of the worst.
Tough. Very, very tough. Very, very tough.
Yeah, I grew up in a family where there weren't too many boundaries. Spent my whole life working on it. And somebody said to me that the most powerful word in the English language is no.
Yes.
And that's a complete sentence. And I'm like, oh, don't we always feel we have to justify ourselves? Always.
I believe in you. I believe in you. You can do it. Boundaries are tough.
Boundaries are tough. If someone is interested in working with you, tell us about that. What can they do with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I would say, if this is something that the topic really kind of piques your interest and you want to learn more about it, just go listen to the podcast or go to I'm on all the socials, all the things except for Twitter, because it's mostly like writing and I can't spell.
Yeah.
But check out on TikTok, Instagram, all those. Just listen to the content. Check it out. There's a lot of really cool things I've done on there resource wise. Check it out if you like it. But if you're interested in working on communication with yourself or working on communication with others, like how to communicate, how to listen, you can go to my website at findingthefantastic.com and shoot me a message. My phone number's up there. My email's up there. Awesome. I guarantee you will be able to get a hold of me.
We can find Colleen.
You can find me.
I'll be putting all of your social links in the show notes, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what would it look like for someone to work with you? You told me that you help teach communication.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically it starts with a group. Everything starts with a foundation. We do Finding Your Communication Foundation. So it starts with a group of about 3 people, and we get on a call and we talk very basic. We talk social and emotional intelligence, what that is, what it looks like, and how to start identifying it in your own life. Then we start actionable items. What are some things that you can do starting tomorrow to start working on identifying you, who you are, and your authenticness? We obviously talk about what your goals are, what you would like out of this session. What is something you would like to see change? We talk about your strengths and your weaknesses that you think you have as it pertains to communication to yourself and with others, and really lay that foundation. Body language gets talked about, all of that stuff, because it's so important. And if you don't have a good foundational understanding of it all, going out and like trying to do other communication tactics is really going to be like, what are you talking about? What?
Yeah.
So we start with that. It's just a foundation. Yeah. Just like a group of 3 or more, and we get going.
Okay, cool. And you also said that anyone that's having any kind of communication issue, whether it be family or work or friends or spouse, this can all be for them as well.
Oh, absolutely. Because I mean, how many times have you heard people say, what's the biggest issue that you have to work on in a relationship? Communication. Can be romantic, can be in the workplace, employee to employee, boss to employee. I offer training for companies. I'll come in and do like depending on what your goals are, a 2-hour or 4-hour training session with your entire staff. And let's understand what communication looks like. Fostering a room of candor, open and honest feedback is so important, and nobody does it.
Mm-hmm.
It's all negative, which really is a bummer.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really for anyone. If you're sitting there and you're like, man, me and my partner are having a hard time, we need to learn how to communicate better. Reach out. Let's talk about it. Let's work on it. Let's do that thing. If you and your sister are having a hard time and you really want to build it, I do always have this one preference though. And I ask everybody this. I ask the question, is it worth it? To everyone. So if you come to me and you say, I want to work on my relationship with my sister, I'm going to say, is it worth it? And you're going to go, what do you mean? And I'm going to say, is it worth, 1, spending money to work on it, spending time to work on it, and the emotional tears that are probably going to happen working on it? Because I guarantee you are going to have to sacrifice something for sake of building a relationship with her, because it's compromise. It's 2-way. It's giving up things that are important to you, but for the sake of building a relationship with someone. I ask this right away. I ask the same thing of an employee at a job. Is it worth it? What do you mean? Is this job worth you working on how to communicate to your coworker? No, I don't get paid enough. Then don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we always start with, is it worth it?
Wow. And when someone begins working with you, how long is the process or the journey usually?
The journey. It honestly really just depends on what you want to get out of it. So if you just want to do a foundation class, the foundation class is just 6 weeks, and we do 6 weeks of a class and you learn the foundations of it. After the foundations class, if you want to reach out to me and you want more one-on-one specialization of, well, me and my partner want to work on this, or I want to learn how to listen better. Listening is a big one. We work on listening, not just hearing. It really just depends on your goals and how you feel you're improving. It's not therapy, right? I'm not a therapist. But if you go, well, I worked things out with my partner. Now I want to work things out with my sister, because remember, every human's different. Or you might go, that foundations class really set me up for success. And now I'm exploring it on my own. I've got this. Great. I want to get you in, get you what you need, and get you out. Yeah. I'm not looking for you to, stay with me for forever if you don't want.
And if you're having a problem with a spouse or a partner or someone really close, does that other person need to be in the group with you, or can you do it by yourself?
So it would be great if that other person was working on it as well. I will tell you that it would be incredibly hard to work on a dual relationship without the dual people there, but you can absolutely work on your communication with the other person without them. But that needs to be understood, because what if that other person, it's not worth it to them, and you're spending all this time? So at the bare minimum, you should ask that other person, hey, is this relationship worth it? What do you mean? Well, is it worth it for us to work on it and identify some key things that we miscommunicate on and stuff? Oh yeah, you're worth it. Oh, well, I'm learning. Do you want to learn? Nah, I don't really want to spend time learning. Okay, well, I'm learning. Are you open to me sharing what I've learned? Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
See how it can work out in many different ways.
And sometimes you might have to go through the foundational stuff before you can then pull that other person in, or if I don't know if pull is the right word, but. And
like I said, ask him if it's worth it. If you're sitting here and you're fighting to keep a relationship together, you're fighting to keep coworker, ask yourself if it's worth it, because it may not be worth it. And if that's the case, stop spending time and energy on it and put some boundaries up.
There you go. Oh gosh. Well, Colleen, this has just been fantastic.
Fantastic.
Finding the fantastic here on Unbreakable Spirit. Is there anything you'd like to leave our listeners with? Any profound statement for us? It doesn't have to be profound. I'm just kidding.
I don't know about profound. Anybody out there who's listening right now, and I know I said this before, who thinks they're pointless, who thinks they're not contributing anything to humanity, who thinks they're not valuable, I just want you to know you absolutely are valuable. And I know you don't know me from a hill of beans, but I am a safe space, and I'm here if you need someone to reach out to. I'm here to connect you to the right resources if you need help. And at the end of the day, I'm here just to tell you, you matter in an immense way. And I want you to believe that. So there you go.
Absolutely. Yes. Unbreakable Spirit listeners, you matter. You absolutely matter. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you for a wonderful chat today.
Awesome. I'm stoked. Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right. Well, have a great day.
You too. Talk to you later.
Thank you for joining us on Unbreakable Spirit. To learn more about Jennifer and her holistic weight loss approach, visit her website at 7company.com. That's the number 7company.com. And please join us for our next episode, where we'll hear from more women who overcame hardship and learned how to thrive.